What's up everyone, this is your boy James and I am back with another video for you guys today. And today I just want to do another reaction video and a really interesting video when it comes to the topic of relationships and sexuality. And a really fun reaction video by, I believe her name is Kate and Michelle. So like when it comes to with the topic of relationships and with sexuality, and especially when it comes to with body count, I'm just really want to do a reaction video to this as well when it comes to what she has to explain when it comes to with body count. Does body count matter when it comes to, you know, how many people you sleep with too? So when it comes to with this kind of like somewhat of a sensitive kind of topic too when it comes to with relationships and sexuality too. And I'm going to share my own feelings and thoughts about this video too for watching it for the first time. And if you guys ever want to check out the video for yourselves, I'll post a link to the original video in the description of this video. And just like when it comes to with this video as well, I'm just going to play it full through. When it comes to with that, I'm going to react to and respond to what she has to say as well when it comes to with my natural responses to this video too. So if you guys want to listen to my reaction, you're more than welcome to do so. But if you guys ever want to just really check out the video for yourselves, if you guys don't want to listen to my reaction, you're more than welcome to do so. And the link will be to the original video will be linked in the description below. So if you guys ever want to check it out, and when it comes to with this video as well. And without further ado, let's get this party started. So here we go.
20% of women in the United States have had 10 or more sexual partners. Compare that to only 2% of women in the 1970s. Now you might be thinking, what's the harm in that? This doesn't actually impact things long term. But you'd be wrong. Women who've had 10 or more sexual partners prior to marriage are 33% more likely to get divorced. More disappointingly, women with multiple premarital partners are significantly less likely to stay married after 5 years. And when we look at trends over time, the number of women engaging in premarital sex has increased from 47% in 1954 to 77% in 2003. And if that isn't dismal enough, 65% of women regret casual sex, reporting emotional dissatisfaction and feelings of emptiness. And from an alternative perspective, research shows that women with one or fewer premarital partners have higher levels of satisfaction within their marriage. Our society celebrates women for their sexual liberation.
Is that actually
nobody
true?
Took the time to ask, at what cost? The uncomfortable truth is that there is a very real link to one's sexual promiscuity as a predictor of future relationship outcomes. And in this video, I'm going to give you 6 reasons why a woman's body count matters more than you think it does. But before I get into it, I want to know what you think. Do you think a woman's body count matters, or are we just making this a big deal for no reason?
That's an interesting
without
question,
further ado, let's get into it. And this brings me to my first point. When I asked my audience why a woman's body count matters, well, the majority of the responses alluded to pair bonding. And this is likely a scenario that we've all seen. The friend who seems to fall head over heels in love only to lose interest as soon as things get serious. Or the person who says, I just don't feel anything anymore. That feeling of emotional disconnection, well, it may not be random. It could very well be linked to their past. Studies on pair bonding suggest that our ability to form deep emotional connections can be influenced by our sexual history. Now, if you don't know what pair bonding is, it's a biological phenomenon. Hormones like oxytocin, released during intimacy, pregnancy, breastfeeding, and childbirth, enhances trust and strengthens emotional bonds. However, studies suggest that the release of oxytocin with multiple sexual partners reduces its effectiveness, and this will inevitably impact future relationships. Now, it's important to note here that women specifically rely heavily on oxytocin for bonding, whereas men rely primarily on vasopressin, which is a hormone associated with territorial and protective behaviors in a relationship. Likely why many men say that they feel responsible for a woman when they fall in love with her. But it's important to point this out. The hormonal difference here means that women may experience deeper attachment than men do when it comes to sexual intimacy. And this makes their choices around these decisions much more impactful long term. With the current narrative in society pushing women to act and behave like men, and any pushback being judgmental, envious, or insecure, I have to ask, what if there is a good reason for women to protect their sexuality? As much as we'd like to believe that women are just like men, we're not. And the evidence shows by engaging in multiple sexual relationships, the female brain's reward system can adapt to this experience, making them less responsive to emotional bonds long term. And when it comes to women who've had these experiences, well, most of them don't have healthy, secure attachments. Women with multiple past partners may develop something called an avoidant attachment style. When a woman has an avoidant attachment style, she will be reluctant to depend on her partner and tends to emotionally withdraw to avoid vulnerability. The alternative outcome here is having an anxious attachment style. These women will tend to seek validation through sexual intimacy. And this all comes from the root fear of abandonment and a need for reassurance. And women who use casual sex as a means of validation may struggle to transition to long-term sustainable relationships because they're based on mutual emotional support and stability, which impacts attachment style and ultimately security. In a nutshell, repeated casual relationships can reinforce patterns of avoidance or anxiety. Well, it brings me to my next point. 70% of divorces are initiated by women. And I talked about this at length in my divorce video. But there are deeper signs of stability and long-term investment that we can investigate here. Women with 5 or more sexual partners prior to marriage have a 30% increased likelihood of divorce, while women who had sex for the first time in their teens have roughly double the risk of divorce later on in life compared to women who had their first unmarried sexual experience in their adult life. Interestingly enough, women who've had greater premarital sexual partners experience lower marital satisfaction and face higher divorce rates. And on a more dismal level, women who've had multiple premarital sexual partners may subconsciously compare those people to their current husband, leading to dissatisfaction if their expectations aren't met. It's also important to note that each relationship can leave an emotional imprint. Women with more past partners may carry unresolved feelings or trauma, and this can complicate trust and intimacy in a marriage. Ultimately, a history with multiple partners can create trust issues. If one partner perceives the other as less committed due to their sexual history, there may be resistance in going that deep with somebody. And inevitably, as much as you want to love them, you keep them at arm's length. And this brings me to my next point, seeking validation as a form of intimacy. As I alluded to earlier, the liberation of women seems to be a cause for freedom without responsibility. And that sounds a lot like entitlement. However, there are specific proclivities when it comes to personality dimensions that make a woman more likely to behave in this manner. Promiscuity in women is a multifaceted phenomenon, and this is influenced by personality traits, life experiences, and cultural contexts. For some, it reflects a sense of adventure and openness to new experiences. For others, it may stem from deeper emotional patterns or external pressure. Understanding the psychological and personality dimensions associated with promiscuity can offer insights to the motivation and potential challenges faced by women engaging in casual sexual behaviors. The first one being openness. Women who score higher in openness tend to embrace new and diverse experiences. And this includes sexual exploration. For these women, sex may be viewed as a form of self-expression or curiosity, free from the constraints of traditional norms. Studies, such as the one published in the Journal of Research and Personalities, link high openness to greater sexual variety and experimentation. And societal shifts towards sexual liberation in the 1960s empowered many women to start exploring their sexual desires without the fear of judgment, reflecting these personality traits. Now, impulsivity and spontaneity are often linked to low levels of conscientiousness, and these traits are strongly correlated with unplanned or risky sexual behavior. For instance, women who act on impulse without considering the long-term consequences may find themselves engaging in casual sexual encounters or relationships without emotional depth. Research in personality and individual differences highlights how low conscientiousness can drive impulsive behaviors, including sexual decision-making. This prioritizes immediate gratification over future stability. Now, highly extroverted women are likely to thrive in social environments and seek out new connections, often leading them to greater sexual activity. And studies show a strong correlation between high levels of extroversion and sexual activity. Real-world examples would be like the increased likelihood of hookup culture across college campuses, where socializing often intertwines with casual sexual experiences. And for these women, promiscuity can be a natural extension of their sociability and enjoyment of new interactions. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on narcissistic personality traits. Grandiosity and a focus on self-gratification can also influence promiscuous behavior. Women with these traits may use sexual relationships as a means to boost self-esteem, gain admiration, or exert control control. Research in the dark triad found that individuals high in these personality traits tend to engage in these short-term mating strategies. And the rise of social media platforms like OnlyFans has provided opportunities for individuals to monetize their sexuality.
Is that Lily Phillips in the right?
To maintain emotional detachment. And this behavior is often aligned with narcissistic traits. Sensation-seeking women who prioritize novel and intense experiences often view sex as another outlet for thrill and excitement. Studies like Zuckerman's work on sensation-seeking link this trait to adventurous and sometimes risky sexual behavior. Examples include the popularity of travel-based dating experiences, or apps, or the experimentation of sexual subcultures, where the focus is on exploration over commitment. For these women, promiscuity is a side effect of their desire for new experiences versus creating emotional bonds. Now, attachment theory provides a really good framework for how past experiences can influence future behavior. Women with avoidant attachment styles may engage in casual sex as a way to avoid vulnerability and maintain emotional distance, while those with an anxious attachment may seek intimacy as a means of validation. For example, women with a history of unstable relationships or childhood neglect struggle to form strong emotional bonds, and this can lead them to turn to short-term encounters as a coping mechanism. Studies in attachment theory consistently show that insecure attachments are linked to difficulties in forming and maintaining emotional intimacy. Now, cultural and social factors also play a large role in shaping promiscuity. In liberal societies, women feel more free exploring their own sexual liberation and proclivities without the fear of judgment. For example, the sexual revolution in the 1960s saw a large increase in casual sexual behavior as women started to reject traditional norms. And a study in the Archives of Sexual Behavior highlights how cultural attitudes towards sex influence behavior. Now, I do want to highlight that many people use sexual intercourse as a coping mechanism. So for some women, sexual intercourse or promiscuity is less about personality dimensions and more of a coping mechanism to maintain any level of emotional survival. Women who have experienced trauma or adverse childhood experiences may turn to sex as a means of regaining control or coping with unresolved emotions. The ACEs study, which is incredibly insightful, found connections between early trauma and sexual behavior, specifically in adulthood. For these women, promiscuity is often a complicated interplay of seeking connection while also managing deep-seated emotional pain. That's right, sexualizing discomfort isn't only unique to men. For many women, sexualizing themselves or their sexuality in general is the only tool that they've developed for managing stress, discomfort, sadness, loneliness, or feelings of unworthiness. What most people find, if they're open to looking, is that seeking comfort or validation this way can be like pouring water through a pasta strainer. What most people are seeking is connection and intimacy. And sex without either of these is often empty and meaningless. Using sex to try to right a wrong, make up, or connect is simply using the wrong tool for the actual job. And this brings me to my next and maybe most important point. Now, this may be an uncomfortable truth, but you can't divorce your sexual values from all of your other values. They are intertwined. And promiscuity begets dysfunction in relationships. In the fabric of human values, sexual behavior is deeply intertwined with other core values, such as loyalty, self-control, and long-term commitment. You can't compartmentalize your sexual values from the rest of your life. They reflect and influence how you approach commitments, relationships, and even your sense of self-worth. Promiscuity, while often framed as personal freedom, has psychological and behavioral implications that ripple into relational dysfunction. The choices we make in our personal lives, particularly in intimate matters, are not isolated. They reveal deeper truths about who we are and what we value. Take, for instance, the concept of delayed gratification. It's the ability to sacrifice short-term pleasure for long-term gain. And this is a skill that underpins successful relationships. On top of that, will impact careers and your personal development. And in the context of sexual behavior, promiscuity reflects a lack in the ability to delay gratification, favoring transient pleasures over deeper emotional and relational rewards. This tendency not only influences individual behavior, but undermines the stability required for enduring a long-term partnership. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of integrating your values into a cohesive framework that drives your behavior. Sexual restraint isn't about limiting behavior. It's about fostering habits of discipline, loyalty, and self-respect that spill over into literally every other area of your life. And promiscuity, while often glamorized as liberation, is only a form of short-sightedness that can and will likely erode the foundation of trust and intimacy in relationships and with yourself. And what many people are not aware of is that this trains your mind to seek instant gratification. And this will inevitably create a behavioral pattern that sabotages long-term commitments. If someone constantly chooses short-term pleasure over long-term goals, they are likely to mirror this behavior in many other areas, such as personal growth or their own ambitions. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. And your sexual behavior reflects the values that govern the rest of your life. And loyalty is a really important element in any successful relationship. And it's cultivated by mutual respect and restraint. And promiscuity often undermines this, fostering a mindset of disposability, where partners are ultimately seen as interchangeable. In this perspective, subconscious or not, diminishes the ability to form deep, trusting emotional bonds that are foundational to a stable relationship. And now we have to address the elephant in the room. Is this a double standard? With the rise of feminism, we've seen a cultural shift where women are not only supported but praised for embracing their sexuality, garnering attention, monetizing their bodies. And you'd be crucified if you even suggest that this is inviting the wrong kind of attention. Meanwhile, men can be openly criticized, emasculated, told they're toxic, and are guilty until proven innocent. The concept of double standards when it comes to multiple partners or promiscuity has been controversial to say the least. Men seem to be praised while women are judged pretty harshly. And while this is often criticized as unfair, understanding psychological and evolutionary underpinnings can help explain why these double standards exist and shine light on if they have any actual merit. As I alluded to earlier, men and women differ significantly in how they foster emotional bonds and how sexual behavior impacts their long-term relational stability. Women bond through oxytocin, which is released during sexual intimacy. Men rely on vasopressin, which is less linked to sexual intimacy. And this gives men the opportunity to engage in multiple sexual relations without forming deep emotional bonds. Now, this does not mean that men do not bond at all when it comes to intimacy, but that their larger drivers of creating deep emotional bonds are cultivated through alternative experiences. Vasopressin is associated with loyalty and protection, rather than emotional attachment alone. For men, the release of vasopressin during sexual intimacy can foster feelings of protectiveness and a sense of responsibility for that partner. However, this is often contextual and requires alternative experiences, such as long-term commitment or cooperative goals. And this is why men don't bond as readily. Vasopressin's effects are much more dependent on external circumstances, such as the presence of perceived commitment or shared goals and activities, rather than the act of sex itself. And this contrasts with women, whose oxytocin release happens during sexual intimacy, and this directly promotes trust and emotional bonding. And this makes their attachment less contingent on external factors. And from an evolutionary standpoint, men have historically benefited from spreading their genes widely, making emotional bonding during casual sex less critical. And this is often why men are more able to compartmentalize sexual intimacy from their emotional intimacy, due to the less direct role of vasopressin in emotional attachment. And right, wrong, or indifferent, this compartmentalization allows men to engage in casual sexual encounters without compromising their capacity to form deep and lasting bonds in future relationships. And for women, the release of oxytocin integrates the physical and emotional layers of intimacy and bonds. And this makes it significantly more difficult for us to separate the two. And this is why casual sex can lead to feelings of confusion, frustration, and emptiness, specifically for women. And this leads me to my next point. We have to talk about cultural pressures and expectations that got us here. Feminism is aimed at the destruction of masculinity, but it also drives women to behave like men. So women want the freedom without the responsibility, and men are required to take on the responsibility without freedom. Now, the feminist movement for pushing sexual liberation may have provided some benefits, empowering women to own their sexuality, challenge double standards, and break free from oppressive traditions. However, the narrative that women can engage in casual sexual encounters just like men has only proven to be problematic. While equality seems to be the goal here, ignoring biological and psychological differences in how men and women bond during sexual intimacy can have unintended consequences, particularly for women. And modern feminism has often championed the idea that casual sex is nothing but a form of empowerment and liberation, a way for women to exercise autonomy and control over their bodies. And the rise of hookup culture and apps like Tinder have only normalized this behavior, encouraging women to adopt traditionally male sexual strategies, frequent casual encounters with no emotional involvement. But by now in this video, you understand why that's an impossibility. And pretending that casual sex is equally emotionally inconsequential for women is a flat-out lie and completely ignores the biological realities of how women form bonds in the first place. And this only sets women up for feelings of emptiness, regret, shame, questioning their self-worth, and lost in confusion. In fact, engaging in multiple sexual relationships can lead to a phenomenon that psychologists call emotional fragmentation. And this is a state where a person's ability to form deep emotional bonds is diminished. And no matter how much women say they feel empowered by this behavior, statistics show that 65% of women regret casual sex encounters and walk away with a sense of being used. And it goes further than acute levels of regret around these behaviors. Women with a higher number of sexual partners are more likely to experience mental health challenges, such as anxiety and depression, which is linked to feelings of low self-worth. And unfortunately, in the presence of any judgment or criticism of their behavior, instead of listening, well, they tend to double down, which only further creates their own suffering. Because the modern feminist message often celebrates sexual liberation without addressing the emotional consequences. And this creates a cognitive dissonance for women who engage in casual sex, which is supposed to be fun, exhilarating, and empowering, but find it unfulfilling and emotionally harmful. The pressure to conform to this empowered ideal can leave women feeling isolated and ashamed, desiring for deeper connections, ultimately not finding them. And paradoxically, sexual liberation has only led to the commodification of women's bodies, particularly through social media and platforms like OnlyFans. While these platforms are framed as empowering, they often perpetuate the same objectification that feminism sought out to dismantle, once again reducing a woman's worth to their sexual desirability.
Oh, shit.
So, where do we go from here? First, we need to acknowledge the reality, even if it's an uncomfortable or unfair one. Men and women are different in the ways that we can go about sexual intimacy and the consequences of doing so. And true empowerment should recognize and honor the way that women go about intimacy and ultimately how they experience it. It means creating a space for women to make choices based on their biological, psychological, and emotional needs, rather than conforming to societal expectations of sexual liberation for women and what that should look like. Encouraging emotional intelligence and self-awareness can help women navigate their relationships more authentically, understanding how sexual intimacy impacts their mental and emotional well-being. And this will allow women to make informed decisions about how they go about relationships. Not only the freedom to engage in casual sex, but also the freedom to reject it without fear of judgment. Recognizing that women are not biologically or emotionally identical to men is crucial, specifically in crafting a more nuanced narrative around sexual liberation. Because the idea that casual sex is equally empowering and emotionally neutral for everyone is false. And ignoring these realities has only led to unintended consequences and internal suffering for millions of women, and unfortunately shattered a ton of values that are necessary for healthy and long-term relationships. Now, if you found this video insightful and want to learn more about the differences between men and women, then click this video. And if not, respectfully, fuck off. I'll see you next time. Good chat.
Yeah, it was powerful. So yeah, shout out to Katie and Michelle. That was a very informative video. And when it comes to what I'm about to share too, with my, reactions and feelings and thoughts about this video too, when it comes to just watching it for the first time, and you guys could always share your own feelings and thoughts when you're watching this reaction video too on my channel. And just like when it comes to the topic of body count, it's very it's very tricky and very kind of like controversial in the ways too, because it's like, you know, when it comes to with body count, that's very personal to someone, especially for men and women. And even just like how I was growing up as well, when it comes to with body count, and just like here right now, it's just like, that's none of my business. You know, I've always been respectful towards someone's personal business when it comes to with their past experience with relationships. So when it comes to with like the women that I talk to in my life as well, especially in a romantic kind of setting too, like I never ask about their body count. That is totally their business, and I respect their decision if they don't want to share that right now with me, and that's totally fine. And I really, you know, respect their boundaries when it comes to with their privacy, which is totally fine. And even just like with me too, like me personally, I never will share my body count and really just explain that, you know, for the whole world to listen to, because it's just, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way just doing that. Maybe I'm old school with that because I grew up in the 90s and all that too, and now I'm just showing my age on YouTube for everybody, for the world to listen to and see. But it's just like, you know, just really, if you really just think about it in a really, you know, different perspective, it's just like when it comes to like with body count, it's really personal for people too, like for men and women. But at the same time, like with men, because, you know, if they have like a lot of partners, they want to brag about it. They love to kiss and tell. A lot of men love to kiss and tell, just gonna be straight up with that too. And I've heard this so many times when I was in gym lockers, and even when I was just working out, or even just when I was in middle school and high school, they was like, oh yeah, man, I just hooked up with this beautiful girl and she's fine as hell, got a nice ass and titties and all that shit. And I was like, okay, that's cool, man. I just hearing about it, just, you know, listening to it, you know, just being with the boys, you know. And a lot of men nowadays, I'm not saying all of them, but most, they love to kiss and tell, and especially nowadays too. But with women, it's very different, you know, and because women go through so much, you know, that most people don't realize. It's just like they get desired from men all the time, and they're just walking, minding their own business, or just like when it comes to just doing their job, or even just entertaining people when it comes to the things that they do, like on TV or on social media platforms and all kind of stuff too. Like I met some amazing women who does some powerful stuff, not just in the entertainment industry, but in the wellness industry and so much more too, and spiritual communities as well. And even just like with certain lifestyles women are into as well, like in the lifestyle, if they're swingers, if they're just like a plain vanilla person, which is totally fine, which is nothing wrong being vanilla. Even if you're in the lifestyle, that's totally cool too, as long as like people, you know, practice healthy boundaries, especially when it comes to for their overall health, getting tested, when it comes to just like making sure you're not passing on to something that's just going to be harmful to either one of you too. So that's why I'm a firm believer when it comes to with wellness, just really getting tested when it comes to with certain STDs out there too, because it's just, you know, dealing with that alone it's not the, you know, not the best thing to deal with, and it can really just be harmful, not just for yourself, but also with other people that you want to hook up with too. And it's really good to let people know, you know, when it comes to, you know, getting tested and all that as well. And whether you're a man or a woman, if you're straight or gay, Brazilian, black or white, European, Italian, etc. And so it's just like when it comes to with body count, and, you know, to me personally, it's just like when it comes to with women, you know, their body count alone is none of my business. Who am I to tell and say when it comes to asking how many people that they slept with? That would be totally disrespectful of me to really just do that. And if I do that, you know, women will probably have the right to say how big my dick is, you know, saying that, you know, respectfully, not trying to, you know, break YouTube guidelines. So I'm just going to keep it real with you. You know, it's just like, you know, I would never ask a woman body count because that's their personal business. But when it comes to, and if I do that, you know, if I slip up and if I'm on some arrogant shit, it's just like, you know, you guys got the right to say how big my dick is too. And it's just like, oh shit, like I fucked up. So it's kind of like, you know, just keeping myself in check. And it's not just to beat myself down, but I just love to really just be genuine and really healthy person too, especially when it comes to being a man, because sometimes with men, and especially when it comes to the topic of relationships and sexuality and body count, it's just like, sometimes most men nowadays love to kiss and tell how many women they slept with. They brag about it on social media, on movies, TV, and I've heard this too in certain content, on YouTube, especially Instagram, TikTok. And so it's just, men do kiss and tell. I know women do that too, but from my knowledge as a man, especially as a black man too, most black men love to kiss and tell, like, especially if they've been with the fine ass, women from Asia or from Brazil or from, America too. If she's a white girl, she's, Mexican too, they love to kiss and tell. And there's a lot of proof of that too on social media. You can really just find it easily when it comes to a certain podcasts and videos and all kind of crazy stuff too. And just like with the topic alone for this reaction video, does body count actually matter? That's a really tricky question there too. So it's kind of like, it's very sensitive. So it's just really, really being careful with that as well when it comes to just really asking that kind of question. Me personally, that's none of my business, because that's their past and that's their past alone. But at the same time, when it comes to with, the wellness side too, when it comes to just like if I'm in an intimate relationship with someone, and if they have like an STD that I don't know of, maybe body count does matter. I don't know. It's just, when it comes to with that, it really is like a double-edged sword when it comes to with these kind of topics. It could really just start fights in an instant. It's kind of like comparing that kind of topic to like politics. It's just like, oh, should we really talking about that shit? And so it's just really tricky to really just talking about certain things too, and especially when it comes to with topics of relationships and all that. And even just like now talking, my throat's getting dry, so excuse me for a second. Yeah, and it's just really crazy, and again, me personally, when it comes to with body count, when it comes to women, it's none of my business, and rightfully so. So when it comes to with that, but at the same time, if I'm in a monogamous or in a polyamorous dynamic, if I should say too, and with certain women or people too, because with me as a black man, most people are attracted to me in the most weird ways. I'm just gonna speak from my own personal experience, and just like when it comes to getting tested to make sure people are healthy, so we don't get like STDs or anything like that, I would like to know, just be on the safe side, and I will do the same for them. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that as well when it comes to with the body count as well, especially when it comes to for men and women. But if you guys liked my reaction to this video, you're more than welcome to share your own feelings and thoughts about it too. In the comment section, feel free to speak your feelings and thoughts about it as well, even towards me too, if you guys like my reaction, if I got anything wrong with that as well when it comes to with body count with men and women too, in today's society, and even from the past also. I'm when it comes to the stuff in the past, I don't know much about it because I wasn't even born, so who am I to comment about that as well? But like when it comes to with what's happening right now, when it comes to with relationships, and even with interactions, and when it comes to with men and women, or even with the same sex, it's just like with me personally, and I can only speak from my own personal experience. It's just like me as a black man, I don't like to kiss and tell, but at the same time, I like to share experiences that I really learned from too, and just really making like a fun learning story that people can really just relate to as well. Just really on a genuine, healthy kind of like vibe there too, and just really share some fun, relatable stuff that people can really just relate to or understand too, from different perspective, of course, because I'm a nerdy hippie and I'm fully embracing that shit too. So when it comes to with that, and of course to to all the women out there who are subscribed to my channel, I appreciate you, whether you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s and above. I love you guys too, respectfully. You guys are beautiful, beautiful people. You guys don't go through so much, and it's just like shit. I love to interact with women on a daily basis, but sometimes I don't want to approach because I don't want to be in their business. I don't want to get canceled, and it's just like, I'm not saying I'm a punk or anything like that. It's just I'm very careful. If you do like to talk to me, that's some cool shit. But like for the men who are listening to this too, I have nothing but respect for you guys as well. Especially for those who are genuine and really good people out there too, especially Black men as well. And you know, when it comes to with that, and yeah, that's pretty much it, you know. So again, if you guys ever want to listen to the original video, or even watch the original video, I should say too, you're more than welcome to check out the original video in the description of this reaction video. So if you guys ever want to show support for Kate and Michelle, she's a beautiful woman. Shout out to her. She drops some facts there too. Despite how you guys feel about it, that's totally fine as well. And if you guys, you know, ever want to email me or just give me any kind of content suggestions you want me to react to with certain videos and content on YouTube or even on Instagram too, because I'm mostly on those platforms the most. So yeah, that's basically it. I appreciate you guys. If you guys ever want to you know, see more content like this, feel free to not only like this video, that helps this channel grow, but also subscribing to this channel too, and really just hitting all the notifications so that way you'll get notified for all the things that I'm doing for this channel. So without further ado, I'm about to call it a day. I did some really, you know, sitting on my ass and just being on my computer all day. I gotta stretch my legs, do some yoga, do some really nerdy hippie shit too. So it's kind of like stretching my legs, doing some asana poses, and then probably get something to eat, you know, get on my PS5, kick some ass on there too. So, but other than that though, I appreciate you guys for who you are. If you're a man, if you're a woman, Black or white, Mexican, Brazilian, you know, straight or gay, bisexual, and yeah, I'll see you guys around in these social media streets. So peace and many blessings.